All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting. First, we will start with residents' comments. 3 minutes per speaker. So, Stu, I believe you're the only one that signed up to speak at the beginning of the meeting? Oh, it's Tom, okay. Okay.
I just wanted to reiterate.
Excuse me, Stu, could you introduce yourself and
Stu
where you
Seckler,
live?
I live on Barrio.
Thank you.
I just wanted to reiterate problems that we're having with the lakes in reference to the invasive species. Before you know it, we're not going to have any bass in our lakes. It's not going to be like tomorrow or anything, but the tilapia, they spawn every 2 to 4 months, and 60 to 100 fry. So before you know it, we're going to have just tilapia in our lake, because I've got articles here that say that they're just going to push the bass out, and bluegills and everything else that we originally started with, apparently, and they're just going to take over the lake, and it's not a good thing to have. Also, since they're tropical fish, if the water temperature ever gets below 50, we're going to be calling somebody to fish out hundreds and thousands maybe of dead, because they shouldn't have been there in the first place, because they're tropical fish. Water temperature gets below 50, they don't like that, and they start floating up. Also, the catfish, I had a question about the catfish are growing right now, doing a lot of spawning right now, and I can personally say it's been the last couple of weeks that I nearly broke my ankle at least a couple of times, because where they burrowed in, you walk on top of that, it's going to cave in. So I was, as a safety thing for the residents, I don't know if we could get sued because the catfish are making these burrows, and somebody's going to step in, a resident's going to step in it and break their ankle if Sandoval is responsible for it. Also, in reference to our fishing event, I know the Lakes Committee has put a lot of time and effort into the fishing event, and I was a little surprised that 2 weeks before the fishing event, I'm getting an email saying that the social committee wants to cancel it. I didn't even know the social committee was involved with anything with our fishing event except for the financial part.
Stu, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, apparently it's still on, the fishing event, and I don't know if we're handling the fishing event or the social committee is going to handle it, because if they want to cancel it, they can run it, I guess. They're going to run it.
No, we will.
Well, why would somebody say the social committee wants to cancel it?
Time's up. Thank you, Stu. Next speaker, please.
Thomas Robinson, Woodbourne. Just go back to the fishing event. It was one person, Sunday. Okay, so what I want to talk about is the vehicle that we are looking at purchasing, and either being a roadworthy vehicle or a gator. Okay, I missed last week's meeting, so I don't know all the statistics. I have looked at the gator portion of it this week. The one thing that I want to say is that there is $25,000 in the budget. I believe it's going to need to go up closer to $35,000, whichever vehicle we decide to choose. I also like to say that as we're about to go out and purchase that, I'd like to be part of the group that actually goes out and tries to locate whichever vehicle the board decides on, so that I feel like I'm doing something for my community. One of the things in the packet that you got tonight, because I saw it on Tuesday, is a Can-Am. When I look at the Can-Am, I got it home, it's listed as a limited, so I'm not sure what the criteria is to be able to pick the vehicle. So I don't know that a limited model is or isn't the right one. It may have all the right bells and whistles that we need, I just don't know the criteria of what we need. And I was out on Pine Island today, so I actually stopped at a couple of automobile vendors, and I'll pass by one pickup truck. I'm not supporting either one of them, I'll just pass by information that I got today, that anybody can look at it and pass it on to the next member.
Thank you. Is there another speaker?
Hi, Mary Beth Paduda from my report. I just wanted to bring this up, and I think, hopefully, maybe we can have more discussion in the future, either via an email to people or the town hall, to talk about I came across this Facebook post, and I'm reading it here because normally I don't put a lot of merit into Facebook posts. But, someone brought up something regarding our last meeting, that there was a substantial amount of money sitting in a non-interest bearing account, and that there are some, that we are FDIC overlays in some of our accounts, so I thought these were really important issues for the entire community, and we all about money as well, right? So I thought I would just bring it up here, and at some point, if we could have a discussion about that, just so that I don't have to read, what people's opinions are on Facebook. I'd like to get it from the source. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is that the last speaker? Okay, good, let's do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We're going to call this meeting to order and establish a quorum. Jen Elkins. Here. Dave Ott. Here. Lynn Smith.
Here.
Beth Ann Holsey.
Present.
Todd Reinhardt.
Present.
Andrew Emmerich, attending remotely. Here. And also with Bill Simonelli is here. We have General Manager Chuck Heel. Here. And we have a guest speaker at the beginning of the agenda, Jokerton from Wi-Fi Advisors. Here. We have established a quorum, and we'll proceed with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the board meeting minutes from June 27, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move the approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I've got a couple of corrections, please.
Okay.
I have an ask, and that is that when there's a vote that's not unanimous, if we can designate who the supporters are and who was opposed in the minutes versus a number, I think that's important.
Okay.
Okay? The second thing I want to note is that under the insurance resolution that was passed, there's no notation in there that the risk management committee did not support that resolution. I think that's an important piece to have in the minutes. That's all I've got.
Are you making a motion to add those to the meeting minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second.
All in favor? Raise your hand to add those to the meeting minutes. Andrew, how do you vote?
Bill, I say aye.
Okay, the vote is 6-1. So with those additions to the minutes, do we have an approval of the meeting minutes from June 27th?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our July 9th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from July 9th.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes? All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Okay, none opposed, those pass unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the board president's report. Good evening, and I'd like to welcome everyone who is attending this regular monthly board meeting in person or watching live or in a YouTube replay. I'm asking for your patience. We originally were intending to have this as the first board meeting using Zoom. We've had some technical difficulties, so I'm going to ask for everybody's patience as we gain experience with how to best use this tool. Before we discuss today's agenda, I'd like to go over 2 items. Earlier this month, the board met to review in detail the requirements for homeowner associations in the 2024 legislation. I believe for the most part we have a good understanding of the requirements and are focused on making the necessary changes. There are 2 items that will require additional board discussion before we finalize Sandoval's compliance plan with those items. And we will be updating the community every month, starting at this meeting, with our progress to achieve compliance. The next item I'd like to bring up is that we will not be meeting again in public until August 29th. Before then, on August 20th, is the primary election with a focus on candidates for local offices. These are individuals that will have the greatest impact on Cape Coral and the greater Lee County. I'm asking you to take some time to look at the candidates and vote according to your preferences. If you are eligible to vote and will not be able to physically vote on the 20th, you have until August 8th to request a mail-in ballot. I believe the greatest impact that we can have on our local elected officials is engagement with and voting in the local elections. Today we have a guest speaker, Joe Curtin of Wi-Fi Advisors. Wi-Fi Advisors has been contracted by Sandoval to lead our efforts for the replacement of our current internet service. Joe will be briefing the board on goals, procedures, and timelines for this effort. We have 3 items under old business and 2 items under new business to consider tonight. Under new business, we have consideration approval of the late 16th shoreline repair proposal, the first monthly report on efforts to comply with the 2024 HOA legislation, and reconsideration of the maintenance vehicle replacement. Under new business, Chuck Keel will brief the board on the storm preparedness operations guide and the management team has been working on for the past several months, and the board will consider an ARC appeal. I will now ask the treasurer to make his report.
Okay, treasurer's report. Year-to-date income under budget due to interest income below forecast. Keeping an eye on house sales, although year-to-date we are ahead of the budget plan. Simplified cash services. We would like to recommend, the Finance Committee would like to recommend that we move $1 million from PPP into the ICS account and start paying more bills out of that account. When I looked into it, I was told that it required board approval to move that amount of money. We begin paying additional vendors from the account once we get everything transferred.
Total reserve balance funds as of 6/26 is $3,784,025. Breaks out the $224,080 from the PPP balance and the remaining $3,559,944 is in the Fifth Third Bank. And the current yield is 3.43%. Reserve spend. First quarter, we spent $46,697, and the second quarter, we spent $117,936 for a total of $146,633. Oh, 164. The financial reporting issues with Associate have pretty much been resolved. Everything came in on time this month, and everything looked good. We're continuing to meet with Associate VP of Operations to continue reviewing the financial numbers. Interest earned on a Fifth Third account is lower than expected. For February, March and June. I don't know yet why that is, but for whatever reason, the amount of money we earned those 3 months was way down. Okay. Top line financials, operating income and expenses, no red flags. Operating expense, positive year-to-date variance. Return on investment, not as planned, and again, we're looking into why that is. Okay, major expenses. Neighborhood landscaping, higher because it includes mulch and tree trimming that takes place later in the year. Utilities under budget due to CenturyLink not invoicing on time. What happened was, when we got the June report, I noticed that there was no amount in there. And Associate checked the CenturyLink and they, for whatever reason, forgot to send us 2 invoices. So I'm assuming next month we'll probably see that go back up. Payroll will level out with some increase in pool attendance. I know that they hired, I think, an additional person. And then insurance positive variance due to the premium expense lower than what was budgeted. Other expenses, irrigation repairs as usual is higher than budgeted. Where 4 irrigation controls need to be replaced. Irrigation repairs in 2023 came out, some of that came out of Hurricane Ian budget. So I think when they planned the budget for 2024, they didn't estimate the amount it would really cost for irrigation. So we're gonna need to look at that more closely when we put together the 2025 budget. Year-to-date operating balance sheet. Total assets now include the building valuation of $2.4 million. So that's why you see the large difference between now and last year. Reserve balance sheet. Everything looks pretty good in there. And then delinquencies. We're following the same pattern we have in previous quarters where the last month of the quarter is when we have the lowest amount of delinquencies. Hurricane Ian assessment. This is a slide I started last month. The number of people paid in full has gone up from 75 to 79%. And after we sent out a letter to the people that had made no payments, 27 of them had made payments. What I don't know is, did they pay in full, or did they just pay something? I have to go back and compare the audits. And then this is the projected reserve spend. I made some adjustments. I ran an audit, and then I made some adjustments to this report based on the results of the audit, because some of the money was in the wrong month, and I corrected it. But as I said before, through June, we spent $164,633. We're $5,000 over budget on discretionary spend, but our total spend plan is $37,549 under budget. And that's it. Does anybody on the board have questions?
Yeah, the question, the allegation that our funds are not covered by FDIC, I believe that's incorrect. Can you explain?
Well, some of it is not covered, and that's why I want to move $1 million into that ICS account. So when you spread out, we can pay additional bills. The other thing is, until we're sure that that is set up properly and we're paying bills out of it, then we need to look into where we want to move some additional money from the other account.
What is our exposure? How much do we have?
Right now, we have just over $2 million in the one account. So So we are, but by moving $1 million to that, that's gonna correct part of it, it's not gonna correct all of it. But until we know that we are paying our bills out of the correct account, I'm concerned about taking more money out of that right away.
I have a question, Dave.
Yes.
I see that we still are holding over $300,000 in the special assessment account. Do we have an intention of moving that into investment again, or do we still anticipate spending $300,000 towards repairs or damages to the unit?
As best I can tell, we have one more repair that we're waiting on, and then we're gonna need to look to see where the best place is to move that money.
Thank you.
I mean, so David, presumably, we do have to keep that account open at least for a little bit longer to finish collections on the assessment, and at some point we do need to do the transfer.
I have a couple of questions. What's the status of the audit?
We received the audit from the auditor today. So I hope to get it out to the rest of the board by tomorrow.
The other thing in regards to the bank accounts, I've provided you just a very quick pencil analysis. The hurricane assessment account has run a balance of over $300,000 for the last several months. And if you used a simple nominal rate of 2%, which is super conservative, our lost interest on that account is about $550 a month. In addition to, we're exposed on FDIC insurance because the cap is $250,000, excuse me. The second illustration is the operating account with Pacific Premier Bank. Again, both of these accounts are non-interest bearing. The rolling average in this, or the rolling balance in this account is approximately $800,000. I used a simple $700,000 average balance at a new 2% nominal rate, which is super conservative, and we are losing $1,200 a month in interest income on that account.
Finance committee will have to look into it. I mean, I don't have an answer for you right now, but,
Well, the answer on the second one is that you want to transfer money out of PPP operating
well, yeah.
to the Fifth Third. So,
And I guess what I'm saying is that you have exposure on the operating account of over $600,000 on FDIC coverage, and we're losing interest income by waiting to make transfers. And I think it's something that we need to prioritize. Just from, again, that's just my opinion. And in addition, I can answer your question why the Fifth Third account is down on interest income. The market's already kind of priced in treasuries that we're probably looking at an interest rate cut in September. So therefore, maturities on treasuries have tended to decline over the last probably 60 to 90 days.
Okay, thank you.
That's what the Fifth Third.
so David, are you going to make a motion for approval to transfer?
Yes, I would like to make a motion for approval to transfer $1 million from the EDC bank account to the ICS bank account.
I'll second that. My question is, what is that $1 million invested into?
It's when it gets spread out to the other accounts, there are various money market accounts that are below the FDIC limit as part of the spread that occurs with ICS.
So they're using the CDR system?
Don't know the answer to that.
Again, I go back to, I'll support the motion, but I need preservation of liquidity for this association is paramount, and we should make sure that we are covered at all times. And unfortunately, for the last multiple months, we've not. And I think it's imperative that we make this a priority.
You would FDIC cover.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd just like to make a couple comments. So last year, the board approved implementation of the ICS account. There were delays in getting that ICS account set up. Once we're set up, we then ran into financial reporting issues with Associa that further delayed implementing that account. Now that we've got the financial reporting issue stabilized with Associa, we are working as an objective to move most, if not all, of our operating expenses to the ICS account over the course of the year, and then continue to pay our bills from that, which would then alleviate the concerns over the FDIC limit.
Which again, Bill, is another one of my pet peeves, is why Associate dictates to us what bank to use versus us telling them what bank we want to use.
Well, last year we took the recommendation, that's what the board approved for implementation of ICS. So if we want to change it, we can start looking at that, but right now this is what we approved with vote last year. Do I have any other comments on this before we take a vote? Okay. All in favor of the motion to move $1 million from the PPP operating account to the Sandoval ICS account, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Okay. The next item is we're moved up the Internet Ad Hoc Committee report as part of the agenda. We've asked Joe to come now that we have him under contract as a consultant. And one of the reasons why we moved him up to this part of the agenda is that he can then drive back to Miami and not doesn't have to drive back in the dark. So, Joe?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much first for having me, for hearing this short presentation. Also, thank you for your confidence in moving forward with our firm. And just to start, I can't say enough good things about the Internet Committee that you guys have put together. To the board and to the residents, I want you guys to know you guys are really properly represented. There's a lot of diverse opinion. It's very respectful. They're very, very smart. There's great communication, and most importantly, they really care about Sandoval. They're looking for the best thing. So it's been a privilege to work with them. All those components, I think, really make a great team. Can you go to the next slide, Dave? Just wanted to spend some time, first just introing my company for those that haven't heard of our firm and what we're doing, talk about some of the objectives and goals that we mutually are aligned in the coming months, talk about some of the actions that we've taken place since we've been brought on board, and then just a high-level timeline from now until the end of the year of key milestones and processes that we're going to be undertaking, and then, of course, to take questions at the end of it. Go to the next slide, please. So just a little bit about us. As Bill mentioned, we operate just outside of Miami in Doral, Florida. We're an independent, full-service broadband firm, so we don't represent any of the providers. We represent the community association. And we look to empower and advocate for those community associations and really push the envelope. We're somewhat of a disruptor for the providers, and that we're pro-customer and pro-customer experience, looking for new, innovative ways that we could improve upon these contracts. We've been doing this for quite some time, or at least I have. I've contracted about $500 million worth of contract value, specializing inside these bulk agreements. Really kind of specializing inside the Southwest Florida area. This is about as north as I've gone inside Southwest Florida. A lot of our stuff is inside Naples, maybe Fort Myers. But I don't mind crossing the bridge to get on over here to work with everyone. And our mission is really to put you guys in the driver's seat. You guys drive the bus. The providers do not drive the bus in this process. You guys are 1,400 homes that have a lot of leverage. And we're looking to build upon and create ways to maximize the leverage that 14 to 20 homes has. And then protecting communities with contract flexibility, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. We talked about being a disruptor. These are long-term contracts, 5 years, 10 years. A lot of things change in the world in a couple days. How quickly does technology change inside that time frame? So some of the things that I'm working with the committee on, just to give some examples, we're going to start at an internet speed in this new contract in 2024, and well, I guess the contract will start in 2026. But what about the speeds in 2030, 2032? If this is a long-term deal, I want to make sure, I guess going back to my scouting days, we're being prepared in accounting for what the future may hold. Equipment upgrades, and then beyond the contract, you know, we specialize in this procurement negotiation process, but we want to make sure that you're happy at the end of this experience with whether it's with CenturyLink, Quantum Fiber, or a new provider. So we're going to be working with the board, the committee, beyond the contract, to make sure that whatever provider ends up winning this bid is being compliant with everything that they committed inside the contract. And so looking for association satisfaction. On the next slide, you'll see just the objectives that we have. So first and foremost, network reliability. It's got to work. And we're looking for all these providers to provide for a true fiber to the home experience. So we're not looking for the last 30 feet to transition to a different type of wiring. We're looking for fiber that's going to go from their data centers to head end that may be here on the property, all the way into the home. That's what we're ultimately looking for. We're looking for service level agreements that guarantee service reliability and availability. You guys, I know the contract right now, each unit's paying about $25 with CenturyLink, times 14, 25 units, that's 35 grand. That's a lot of money that's going to the provider each and every month for a long-term contract. If the Wells Fargo right in front of the street were to go down, well, what are they paying? Maybe a couple $100, maybe $1,000, $2,000. If something were to go down in Wells Fargo, you could be sure that they're going to fix that relatively quickly. So I believe that Sandoval, using the purchasing power of so many homes, should be treated like an enterprise customer. So we're going to be focusing on the reliability of the network and guarantees of service reliability. Price is critically important. You guys got a phenomenal price. Those that negotiated the last bid did a phenomenal job in getting a great rate. And financials are critically important inside our overall evaluation. We also want to take into account the value. You know, how can we improve upon this technology and look to build upon it? This is what I care about. Maybe outside of the service reliability, the most is the customer experience. You know, how happy are you using the product? So we're looking for, as I said, service level agreements that are also going to detail what's the call center experience going to be like. Is it going to be US-based call centers? How quickly are you willing to put in writing that you're going to answer the phone? If a technician needs to come out, what's the protocol with that? I think that those are things that should be talked about beforehand. And if a provider is very comfortable with how they treat customers, they should be willing to put it in writing, I believe. And then upgrading the equipment and technology. Like I said, these are long-term agreements, so we want to be up to date with the routers that are going inside your home, increasing the speeds. And we look to future-proof. You know, can we ever future-proof everything 100%? You know, we're going to try. You know, what's 2030 going to hold? What's 2032 going to hold? We'll see. But we're going to be doing things that put us in the best position, like the guaranteed speed increases I talked about, and equipment upgrades over time inside the contract. We're looking for that as well. Next slide, please. So, summary of actions to date. We've been on board now for just about 1 month. As everybody knows, the current contract with Quantum Fiber expires in April of 2026. And some may be saying here, you know, well, why are we looking at this now in July of 2024? And the real reason is to maximize our options. It takes quite a bit of time should a potential alternative provider be selected. They're going to have to pull permits. They're going to have to go through construction. They're going to be doing a design plan. We want a smoothly rolled out installation and activation. And importantly, we want the proper education for all the residents. So town hall events, so on and so forth. So that's why our goal is to look to conclude this process and moving forward with a successor contract by the end of the year. And this month we've been meeting, myself and the committee, talking about a variety of things, obviously talking about those objectives and goals. We've put together a very detailed timeline of specific milestones that we're looking to accomplish from here until the end of the year. We've talked about the different competing providers inside the market. I like competition. I think it's great. I think that there's a lot of viable providers to at least consider. And we're going to work to leverage every deal point we possibly can against these guys. And the most important thing that we've done in the last month is put together a request for a proposal, an RFP, that was approved by the committee. I believe it's inside of the packets with the board right now. And The way how I like to do my RFPs is initially it's a little light on specifics of what we're looking for the providers. Obviously, we're going to have certain mandates of what we need. For example, a full gig to start. But we want to see also what the providers are willing to offer up front without limiting ourselves. So I think that there's a lot of leverage to be had when we see how willing are they to sign a 1,400 unit property before the end of the year. I think that they're going to be very competitive. And then we're planning on sending the RFPs to obviously the incumbent provider, Quantum Fiber. You may have seen trucks for hotwire communications and Blue Stream Fiber around in the area. Comcast, which is here on the property, although we're going to be looking for them to build out a fiber to their own network, and Summit Broadband as well. So five different providers, and all of these providers have north of 250,000 subscribers here inside the state of Florida. So these are viable providers. Next slide, please. So the final slide I have here, and then we'll go into questions. This is a very high-level timeline of what we're looking to do over the coming months. Over this month, the next month, it's all about the RFP and getting the proposals. So we've drafted those, as I mentioned, and those are looking to go out on Monday to those 5 providers that we mentioned. On August 13th, we're planning on having a site survey visit from the different providers, construction and network design teams. They're going to come on out and do a visit to understand how they're going to bring fiber into each and every unit. And that's going to vary depending on whether it's a single-family home, one of the duplexes, the condominiums. We want to make sure that we're taking into account all these different types of properties. And we have asked inside the RFP for them to put together how, in writing, their findings and how they're looking to accomplish this. I think that's really important. A lot of times providers say, yeah, we're going to build a network and don't worry about it. They wait for the contract to be signed, and then we find out what the network looks like afterwards, and we're like, hey, what's going on here? So we want to see everything up front, and we wanted to get that in writing with them. And then those proposals we're expecting to get back at the end of August. And following getting those proposals, I'll be working with the committee to review those, putting those inside an easy-to-read matrix, because those proposals come back, they're 40 pages, a lot of marketing material. So we want to make sure that we're really examining the business deal points and evaluating everything. And I'm sure the committee and myself are going to have lots of questions for these different providers, so we're going to be setting up service provider meetings with them to hear what they have to say. What's your vision for Sandoval? And have them answer our questions. I'll be working and taking the lead on the negotiation side. We'll be doing due diligence, checking with references, checking with their customers, myself and the committee. And then ultimately the goal is at the October board meeting for the committee to put forth a recommendation of the proposal to move forward with. And then I'm excited to work with you guys and possibly work with setting up presentations with either solely just that committee recommendation or maybe the 2 finalists for you to hear what they have to say and for you guys to make sure that your questions are all being answered. And then following that, we're looking at the November timeframe for the board to ultimately vote on which proposal and which provider to move forward with, subject to legal review. And that would be the next step that would take place right after the Thanksgiving holiday, leading up to the December board meeting, working with council for them to negotiate that contract that the board elected to move forward with, ultimately leading to the December meeting board final vote to move forward with a particular contract. So it's a very high level timeline of what we're looking to do, and again, I appreciate everybody's time and look forward to answering some questions.
Any board members have questions? John?
Yes. I'm sure the contract will have provisions for what happens when they fail, so that we get compensated. But the thing I really, in addition, I'm concerned about fault tolerance. Right now, we're dealing with a single point of failure because our alternate path is gone. So I hope that we make sure that everybody we consider has alternate paths. So many of us are spending, $40, $50, $60 a month just to have something in hand when we lose internet. And that's, we can add up to a lot of money for us for that. So I want to hear from you that this alternate path and fault tolerance is an important part of what we're doing.
It is an important part of what we're doing. It's a combination of things. I completely agree with you on the financial penalties. If they're putting it in their proposal that they're gonna do something, if they're saying that they're gonna be up 99.99% of the time, well, what happens if you're not? And I think that should be outlined inside the contract, where there should be, whether it be credits or financial penalties, to make sure that they're adhering to that, teeth to it. And then regarding the redundancy, I think that that's also critically important. And that's something that we're gonna talk to all the providers on and understand what their plan is to get to the community, and if they're gonna be putting a ring around it, which streets are they gonna be coming on in, and these are things that should be done in writing.
Can you give examples of what has been provided in other contracts that you've dealt with to fix this?
Yeah, so where they will guarantee 2 paths to the community. I have seen that inside contractual language. Not sure if it really details the exact streets, but that may be something that we really want to do, is have them specify which streets they're looking to come from. Obviously, as they grow their companies, maybe they could offer it a third way, a different way, so they may not want to be hamstrung to those particular streets. But redundancy is something that has been talked about, and actually on the RFP, we asked them to elaborate on their network and how are they going to be up the 99.99% of the time. So yeah, I believe that that's critically important to make sure that you're always up and running.
I have a couple of questions. By the way, fantastic presentation, because you're saying a lot of the things that I think that are on our mind. Who presently owns the fiber infrastructure that exists in Sandoval today?
Quantum Fiber owns it as their asset.
So if they own it and we bring in another provider, either Quantum would have to sell them their infrastructure, or they would have to build the infrastructure, correct?
So the new provider, if there was a new provider, would have to build out their own network. They would be responsible for their own network. Quantum Fiber won't be looking to lease that fiber on out, sell it to them. That's going to be their asset as long as it's inside the ground. Just as the Comcast coax is their asset as well. So they're going to be responsible for building out their own network. And that's part of the reason why, if an alternative is chosen, we want to have as much lead time as possible for permitting and construction.
You mentioned something too, which is absolutely true. Technology is changing minute by minute. Do you see the way Wi-Fi is being delivered changing from fiber to wireless in the next several years?
I think that wireless is an option for rural areas that may have less competition than what Sandoval presently has, because you guys are looking at a whole contract, although there's some nearby associations that are completely retail that are struggling as they've been building homes just here inside this Cape Coral area. But when you're leveraging a bulk contract, the providers are certain to get a certain guaranteed revenue, and that's why they could be here and deliver the services. I do think that fiber is here to stay for quite some time. You guys have fiber right now. I think that there's definitely some improvements if Quantum Fiber were to be selected that they would need to do with the system. But I compare a wireless. A lot of people say, well, is Elon Musk going to have the satellites, and do we really need it? At that point. And I think that some of the problems that existed with coax, where you have somewhat of a shared network with coax, you'd have that with satellite as well. So you wouldn't have that dedicated pathway to the network that's going individually to your home. So I always compare fiber to highways, where if you're on coax, or I guess if you're on satellite, it's a 3-lane highway, and everybody's somewhat competing and sharing bandwidth speeds. And when you're ultimately brought to fiber, you're supposed to have 14, 25 lanes, where everybody has their own dedicated pathway to the network. So I think fiber's here to stay. I think that the level of bandwidth that we're using is certain to evolve as we're putting more and more devices on our network. We're putting Ring doorbells. Those with kids may have 4 Apple Watches on theirs. You have dishwashers and washing machines that are telling your TV these days that the cycle's complete. We all still ignore it. But there's so many devices, and also thinking about the future. And again, it's hard to future-proof everything, but we want to see what happens with AI. Obviously, we're realizing that that's taking a ton of energy. If we're utilizing that more inside homes 5, 6, 7 years from now, what type of bandwidth could that be consuming? So that's why I think fiber's here to stay, because it has the capacity to deliver speeds. And all these providers are going to offer speeds up to 10 gigs, on a retail basis with the type of network that they're putting on out. And they've been testing in labs fiber that could run 25 gigs and even more than that. So I think that the medium is right. It's just the bandwidth consumption, I think, is certain to increase.
Well, we're blessed to have you on our team because it does sound like you're full of great knowledge. My other question is the providers that you're doing the RFP. I've been on record that I'm not a fan of long-term contracts, kind of from what the standpoint you said early on is how technology changes and these providers will shift gears on you at a minute's notice. So out of the 5 providers that you've put in your presentation, do you anticipate all of them or none of them asking for more than a 5-year contract?
I anticipate 4 of the 5 are going to be asking for more than 5 years. I anticipate one fiber being that they have a significant capital here already, that theirs may be a lesser term. Comcast, with the fact that we're going to be asking for them to completely change their existing network and go to a fiber system, I expect that they're going to be at a 10-year contract. I think that all the providers are going to be pushing, at least initially, for a 10-year contract, and there may be some wiggle room for a year, maybe 2 years with some of them. But they're going to be asking for a long-term contract, and the primary reason is they're putting a significant dollar expense up front. And they're not going to be charging you the capital expense of $500,000 or $1 million up front. Everything's going to be built into that full monthly fee. So they're usually, I guess I'm on camera, but it's okay. They're usually making their money back between year 4, year 5 inside this. So they're taking a significant upfront hit, and that's the reason for the longer-term contract.
And I think you said exactly what my position has been, is that if you go to a different provider other than Quantum, you're going to be looking at a longer-term contract, probably more money, and then you're going to have to go through the infrastructure construction of their network being installed in the community.
Yeah, I think that there are incumbent advantages that Quantum Fiber has. Although I do think it's a wise thing that we're looking at the market to see what it has to offer. And I think that that's also going to push Quantum Fiber to do the right thing when they're seeing what the competition's doing. I completely understand the hesitancy when we're talking about longer-term contracts like that, especially technology. And that's why I can't stress enough everything we can do to future-proof this contract, to have certain guaranteed speed increases in there, to talk about the equipment. The routers that they're putting in 2026 may not be relevant in 2031. So what's that going to look like? I think that addressing all these things may add some comfort to the long-term contract, but I'm with you. 10 years is a long time.
Awesome, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Tom.
On Quantum Fiber, I've been told that we should not assume the Quantum Fiber network is all good. Is that correct? Some is faster than others, some have missing pieces, so even if we go with Quantum Fiber, it'll have significant upgrades, will it not?
I certainly expect so. Because right now, their capacity on the current network, they've told me, is 1 gig. And I think that that's unacceptable. I think that it should be up to 10 gigs, in level with what the market is seeing right now. And I think a lot of that is geared towards that they have fiber here, but the fiber is being converted to some other wiring at different times. Like I've seen inside some of the single-family homes, it comes up to the house, and then when it gets to the house, it converts to copper. Well, why not just bring the fiber directly into the home and terminate it inside the modem inside the house? I think that would make significant upgrades. And then we also, during the site surveys, I really am looking forward to going into their bunkers, their equipment areas, and seeing what's inside there, because it definitely, in my opinion, feels outdated, and I'm looking forward to confirming that at the visit.
Do we have any other questions from the board? All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Great stuff, thanks, Joe.
All right, moving on. I would like to make a motion to waive the $100 fine for account 002876164. Do I have a second?
What?
It's the first part of your package, Jen.
So if you get your second,
May I ask a question? Why?
Well,
It's got to have a second before we can talk about it.
Sorry. You are correct, sir. I'll second it.
okay, Todd seconded. Yes. So the reason for the request for waiving the $100 fine is that they rectified the situation during the process of the our hearing, or excuse me, the covenant hearings, and the communications crossed each other at the same time, so looking at the timeline for this particular account, it seemed to make sense that they made a good faith effort to rectify the situation so that their fine should be waived.
I have a follow-up question. According to our process and procedure, the Covenants Committee upheld the fine?
That's correct.
So, my question is then, how can we unwind the fine?
It's the board.
Well, the board originally agreed to send it to Covenants,
The,
and they went through the appeals process, and the Covenants Committee approved the fine.
the owner in question here has positioned the board for a presence here tonight to challenge the hearing because of the stipulations. They were going for an ARC application to paint their house. The fine was a dirty house. Went all the way through the hearings, ratified, and then within a couple of days, they had their ARC application. And the owner said they wanted to speak to the board about it. So that's why they're here. No, they're not here today.
They weren't able to physically be here tonight.
Right. My concern, though, is we have a process of a Covenants Committee that is non-board related, that has the charge of hearing appeals regarding fines, and they upheld the particular fine. My also concern is the timeline that is highlighted by our compliance officer indicates that this situation was a non-compliance prior to the application being submitted to ARC. So my concern is kind of a double-edged sword. The chronological timeline does not add up, and secondly, we're kind of circumventing a process.
So it's my understanding that we do have the discretion to do this, Todd. I may misunderstand, but this seems that this was, the fine was assessed from error in the first place because they were in the process of rectifying the situation.
Does that speak to a part of what's in the new legislation in regards to, I mean, be a part of what Todd is saying, but does that speak to what's curable and not curable? If the compliance officer can go back and say this is curable? You know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I understand. They cured the original issue.
Right.
However, it was chronologically prior to the July 1st new statute.
I know that.
Again, my only comment is that, and are we 100% sure that the board can override the Covenants Committee's upholding of the fine?
Okay, let me talk about that. If we can, that gives covenants final authority in adjudicating matters. And I don't think that an appointed committee is supposed to have that authority. You'd rather send it to an elected group. So that's the question maybe for our legal counsel. But,
I think, John, if you look at what the spirit of what the deck and the rules are, is the covenants is that arbitrary arm outside the board that acts as a non-related group of our peers that either blesses what the board has approved as far as violations and fines, or it has the opportunity of declining them. So let's take the opposite approach. The covenants declines it, but then the board comes back and says, hooey, we're gonna fine them. So you can't, you understand my point there?
I think you do that too.
Well, my question then is that I think, I don't know if it sets a precedence or defeats the purpose of our covenants committee. Andrew, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I was going to say, Todd, that your point is incredibly valid, that the covenants committee is the appeals body for covenants violations. In this situation, the homeowner claims that they could not attend the covenants committee due to the time of day. They were given an additional opportunity to attend another day and claim they could not make that one as well. To voice to the point that they were rectifying the situation.
Are there any notes as to why the governance committee kept the fine?
I'm just going by what our compliance officer says here in the email.
Okay, but
On
it
July the 20th, the fine was upheld.
didn't say anything about consideration.
Because they are out of compliance.
Well, there's a double. Are we really accepting appeals when there's no one present to appeal?
They had a previously scheduled personal item.
Then I would say the appeal should wait until they can be present, if we're gonna hear them.
So are you suggesting that we table this to the August meeting?
Not yet. What, I think we should think about it, huh?
Could you restate what the current motion is on the floor?
The motion is to waive the $100 fine.
And I second it, so we're in discussion, is that correct?
Correct.
What do you guys think? If I'm reading this right, it seems to me that the fine was applied, and then after the fact, they submitted an ARC application to get their roof. So, in my mind, the fine should be upheld, and they should have to pay, because it looks to me like what they're saying is, all right, well, now that you've threatened me with the fine, I'll fill out an ARC application and get my house painted. And that's the way I'm interpreting it. And if that's the case, I don't think we should waive the fine.
So we have a choice, either defer this next month or to vote on it now.
I wouldn't delay, let's vote on it.
Let's vote on
Okay. All those in favor of waiving the fine, raise your hand. Although opposed?
Nay.
Yay. Motion to waive the fine fails on a vote of 1 to 6. Ted, would you like to make a motion on the remaining violations?
Sure. I'll just generically say that I would recommend that we move the violations that are in your package towards fine and to the covenants committee.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Ready for a vote? All those in favor of voting for the motion, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the general manager's report.
Okay. One of those. Okay. Violation letters for the month, this month, totals 52 so far. Gate strikes are 12. The crosswalks are currently being painted. They should be finished tomorrow. And Lake 17, which is this lake right out here, the fountain is scheduled to be repaired tomorrow. And we did order the new doors for the clubhouse, which is under Hurricane Ian, and we're waiting about 12 weeks for that to come in. That will be the last of Hurricane Ian repairs once that's completed. And I want to keep my general manager's report short because we're on under new business and old business. Any questions?
Yeah, of the ones we send out, is there one type of violation that's most common?
The roofs are actually starting to come down.
Dirty roofs?
Dirty roofs are starting to come down, either through natural replacement and majority of them, some of them are a lot of landscaping seems to be taking place now.
Is that because we're paying more attention to that now, or?
No, it just comes in waves. You know, it just depends. You know, we've got high growth season now. People are not cutting their lawns for some reason, or their landscapers show up. Weeds on the driveway. I mean, there's stains on the driveway. There's a lot of different in that kind of area.
So dirty roofs are getting cleaned up.
Dirty roofs are getting cleaned up. Yeah.
Any other questions for Chuck? Okay. Moving on to old business. The first item under old business is consideration of the Lakes shoreline repair recommendation. In your package is the reserve expenditure request. Since the motion was already made at the previous meeting, do I have a motion for consideration of the motion to proceed with the reserve request for to use Seabreeze as the vendor for the lake erosion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions before we vote on this?
That's the right thing to do.
Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion to approve this reserve request, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Andrew?
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Okay. The second item under old business, and this will be an ongoing item on our agenda for at least the next several months. Beth Ann Holsay will provide a report on our work to achieve compliance with the 2024 HOA legislation. Beth Ann.
Okay,
Make it legal.
so let me first preface this, remind people that the HOA panel took place 2 weeks ago. So we need to be mindful that the committees have had 2 weeks to think about this, get rolling on it, have comments about it. So, and pretty much a lot of what's in here falls on ARC, covenants, communications, and associates. So having said that, I'm only going to report on the ones that have responded to what statuses are. Basically, on page 1, when it talks about the hurricane issues, basically what has to be done there really hasn't started to happen. Is that the language needs to reflect what the legislation says. In terms of the HB 12003, where the request that the rules, the handbook be given out, one of the things that Associa has committed to do is to currently right now is to print out copies so that when folks are coming to the office to get their stickers for the cars, that's the best way to meet the new folks, is to print out a copy and hand it out at that point. That's what they're going to do temporarily until all the handbook has been revised. And at that point, that procedure will continue, but there will be an e-blast that goes out. It will be available online. So that's what Associa will do, and that will bring us into compliance with that. Communications will upload that. That's their responsibility. One thing that we had questions about is the CEUs. Do you want to be the CEUs, continuing education units? We all now have to do it. Associa has always had to do it and do more than what's required by this legislation. So are we going to put on the site the individual topics? Are we going to outline? Associa has like 24. They are in a file, and if somebody asked to see them, they could see them. They're upon review. But are we now going to list out all of those CEUs, the title of the CEUs? Same thing with the board, right? We have an obligation to do CEUs, and are we going to list out what kinds of CEUs? So we need to make a decision on that, the committee needs to look at that and make a suggestion to the board to review. Again, communications will have to, whatever it is, have to upload that. On the one, in regards to the contracts being online, 2 questions. This applies to the contracts, and this also applies to the insurance policy. Are we actually going to put online the contract with whatever the management company is, Associo, whatever, and our association? Are we actually putting the actual contract online, or are we just, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, that's something that has to be considered and voted on by the board.
Okay.
If you go back to the meeting minutes and the video of that, we set that up as an open action item for the board to consider and vote what level of detail will be provided for the contracts. I believe if you go back and check the video for the insurance policies, we have to put a copy of those policies on Live Sandoval
Okay.
for all residents to view.
Okay, all right, that was that one. Okay, as it relates to, the enforcement of hearings must, be held with 90 days after the insurance of the notice, of hearing. The committee may hold the hearing by phone or as electronic means and provide this information to the individual so they may participate by such means. Rules Committee, Covenants Committee must update its procedure to include remote participation. Todd has given me a note about that I just want, Todd has actually given me some notes on some of these, and I just want to just review them. And Todd, please chime in when I read the email that you sent.
Well, while you're looking that up, I can tell you that after our meeting today, 2 of the covenants letters were updated, one of which added the telephone number for the conference room where the hearing is being held.
Okay,
It says you can either do it by conference call or you can do it by electronic means.
so Zoom.
I think we're starting off with the telephone number they can call in to the hearing.
Okay.
That's been updated, so those letters now, any of those letters go out, will include the telephone number.
Okay.
And then we've changed the fine was payable 7 days after the hearing. Has now been changed to 30 days. And that letter's been updated as well.
Okay.
To answer your question, Beth Ann, in the email I sent you, I think Chuck just addressed it, is the
Yes.
language would need to be,
That would need to be included
changed in the form of
on the
notices
notice.
generated by our compliance officer. We as the Covenants Committee have not seen the new proposed letter. And then on item D, once again, the written notice should be completed by our compliance officer, and the Covenants Committee still, or I should say, has not seen that revised example of the new notice requirement. And then on regards to the cure, up until the covenants hearing, where the property owner has the ability to clear any exception, our compliance officer is going to need to change his routine or process prior to the monthly covenants meeting to make sure that there's an inspection done to either say in compliance or out of compliance at the hearing.
Okay, you just,
Okay,
yeah. Andrew had some comments as well. Let me just get them. Basically, what ARC has been doing is working on their normal business, looking at applications, and so a lot of it, they have not been able to get to. But they are looking at all of the legislation, all the language, all of the current guidelines, what needs to be changed. So pretty much, they have begun to work on this, but don't have any final, something to report at this point.
What will happen after this, again, I'm going back to that this was only 2 weeks ago. So going forward, this chart, when it comes to status, will be more formalized, and there will be written comments in regards to the status of each, even if there's none.
Okay.
In terms of the Rules Committee, let me read what Kathleen has sent me. Again, they've already tried to, they've started beginning. They're not meeting until next Thursday. So a lot of this stuff is gonna be dealt with in their meeting. And a lot of what they said has been duplicated in regards to what Chuck has done. Kathleen, where are you? Okay. In regards to HB 5968, if rules and covenants are amended, new copies will be provided. That pretty much says what I was talking about before. That's why I said a lot of what she has indicated, Chuck and I have already discussed and what they're gonna do. Timeframe and online links are available, communications. HOAs must adopt written rules governing the method or policy for official records to be retained and time period to be retained. Rob and the board will discuss comprehensive record rules and refer to the Rules Committee for advice. So they will make recommendations, and then they'll pass it through the board and Rob, and to make sure that the board approves of that. The HOA must provide copies, rules, and covenants by October 1, 2024. We are compliant. She goes into the whole garbage thing and the vegetable thing, and that again, we have the situation where it's going to be allowed, but if it's in view of, whether you can see it from the street, adjacent to a home, then that's going to have to be specified in the government documents. She goes into the contracts and entry. Vendor contract is not a preferred vendor of the HOA. HOA may not require a contractor to present proof or occupational license to be allowed entry to owner's parcel. Again, that's part of the legislation that we have to abide by, that has to then be written and reflected into our governing documents and our rules. The whole issue of the prohibition of vehicles, that is going to be discussed, and I understand from board further discussed.
And also we have to do further discussion with legal counsel on
Right.
that issue.
Right. Let me just see if. That's pretty much. Okay, Associa is going to be working with, and I think Todd, you mentioned that Associa will be working with Covenants Committee to update the hearing letter. Okay, so they'll be working with Covenants to take care of that. Todd, you think you already mentioned that. That's what your hope is, and that's what your plan is, right, Todd?
We're hoping that Associate will provide us the letter, the Covenants Committee
And
will
they
not
have-
will not.
And they have already begun to do that, to work with. So they're prepared.
Once that's been finalized,
Right.
if you can forward to the chairman, Tom,
Yep.
then I'll let him distribute it to the members.
Will do. Any other questions for Beth Ann?
I have a suggestion about continuing education. When each of us became board members, we had a certain length of time to take a course.
Right.
Yes,
And
90 days.
the certificate of that course, we filed with our GM.
Yes. Well, actually, it'd be treasurer. So Andrew collects that.
The secretary.
And holds on to it. Right, I'm sorry. Sorry. The secretary. So not,
Yeah, secretary.
yes, right, Chuck? Is that correct?
Secretary and
Yeah.
Chuck.
Yeah.
So I suggest we do the same thing. For instance, all of us went through the first course on this from Becker.
Yes.
We got a certificate.
Right.
We said,
You got
forward
two.
that certificate. I
Right.
think we should we should continue that practice. And Becker has assured us that they would then put out courses to make sure they're available to us through the course of next year.
Yeah, so John, the issue isn't that, the issue is whether or not we publish on Live Sandoval your status of compliance with getting your 4 hours of certificate every year. That's what the legislation requires transparency of how each board member is complying to that requirement.
So the question really is, how much detail it's not should be or not, it's how much detail do we want to go, not because of transparency, but how much, when it's available. So if you wanted to follow up and you said, okay, you did 4, I want to see, then it's just like that 90-day certification that we've taken the course. Are we publishing that on the website, or are we just publishing that we're in compliance with it? Are we going to be specific that we took an insurance one? Are we going to be specific that we sat on a webinar in regards to going over the legislation? It's basically what the board and consensus wants us to do.
Okay.
That's the question.
Okay. Any other questions for Beth Ann?
And again, a lot of this, just as I said before, the committees will come up with recommendations that ultimately have to be approved by the board. So that's where we're at. But just remember, I've said it already, that this has only been 2 weeks, and the committees are starting to delve into it.
No, it's commendable the amount of activity that the various groups have done already to start working on compliance to this. And there's a lot of details that we're still working through and making sure we understand, and sometimes different opinions about it, but I think it's important that we keep the transparency to the community.
Absolutely.
That what we're doing
Absolutely.
to get our compliance in shape here.
Right.
Okay.
So I would just want to ask, because Chuck and I met this morning to go over a lot of this. Chuck, am I leaving anything out?
No, I think you got it all.
Okay.
Good. All right. The next item under old business is the maintenance vehicle replacement.
Yes. Last meeting, we presented a pickup truck idea that did not pass. There was a couple of questions that were asked of me. The first question was, would associate purchase a pickup truck and insure it? That I checked with our management, and they said no, they couldn't accommodate that request. And then we went off, and tonight I have with me my subject matter experts here behind me. Brian Herberty, our maintenance director, is here. He's done some, the next action item was to go back to the replacement of the gator. Brian has done some research here. He's come up with 3 different bids for a utility vehicle to replace the current gator. This does not leave the property. This does not leave the property of Sandoval. Can't take it to outside to do anything with it. It is to replace the gators that we use here. One of the gators that we use here to do our maintenance work. It is in your packet. If you want to go through this, I guess your recommendation was the Can-Am. That is estimated at, I guess with, is that 37.5 number? Estimated? Or it's actually 36,837. And I don't know if you had any questions. Brian's happy to answer.
Hey, Brian, I have a question. Which one has the best warranty and which one's most reliable from your perspective?
I haven't looked at the warranties. They're all fairly reliable. I did a little bit of reading. They're all major manufacturers. Can-Am is Bone Deere, recreational products. John Deere, obviously well known, and my little was a Polaris. They're all major manufacturers. They're all fairly well regarded. I don't have the warranties. I can certainly pull that up and get that. The preference for the Can-Am was just because of the size of the bed on it. It's much bigger than the other two. That's the only side-by-side utility vehicle that has that size of bed. All of them are much like what we have.
So your recommendation is the bid two on the Can-Am?
If we were to go down that road, and yes, that would be my recommendation.
I've occasionally joined a motorcycle group that takes tours around. When the guy rides his Can-Am, we make sure someone's following him for when he fails. They break a lot. Nothing runs like a deer, as you've heard, and they're all head. But the thing I want to mention is, I looked up the cost of replacing the current Gator. It's not 37 grand, it's 15 grand.
That's correct.
So if this is to replace the Gator, tell us about replacing the Gator. This is much more than replacing the Gator. So why the difference?
We were looking, so if in the event that we're not looking at pickup truck, we were looking for something with a closed cab. So we could operate in all weather. Right now, anything, you're gonna get soaked if you're out in the rain. No heat, no air, no nothing.
Would be better off with a pickup, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Use a pickup, that was the original recommend, that was the
I
original.
understand. But the question is, I know we have a motion on the floor, but I would like to know if there are other associations that have pickups, large associations, and what their experience is with it. What is the cost of insurance that adequately covers us? And three, I know your requirement of pickup is for less than 5 years old, but I would hope that you would let me recommend someone who's been in the car business for 30 years, who knows most of these dealers around here, that can probably help you get a deal on a used vehicle. And so if we do decide to get a vehicle, I'd like to work with you to find this much better used vehicle. And I hope we don't lock ourselves into only 5 years, because you might find something 10 years old that's in great shape.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, but the next question is, how can we be comfortable with having a pickup truck and its associated liability? And I don't know if we're ready for that yet.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we vote against the pickup truck last board meeting?
Yes, we do.
Correct.
So we're bringing it back up this month?
It's the back door.
They're bringing up the cab, the utility vehicle option. It's certainly within our purview to re-review their proposal if we want to consider it again.
Well, I think, one of the things, and I was one of the people that said nay because of the insurance, and then when left, thought about the insurance. But the other thing, in terms of cost effectiveness, when Brian, John, have to leave the community, they're using their own trucks. So that means, they're using their own trucks right now. So if we were to go forth with the same thing, every time they have to do something outside the community, they have to rent a
These
truck.
don't go outside either. These don't go outside either.
No, okay, right, I know they don't, but that's exactly my point in
Yeah.
regards to why we need to revisit the decision
Yeah.
that we made. Because again, that decision was made, quickly that night. One of the things that when I said, no, and when Todd raised that insurance question, I was like, oh my God, he's right, I never even thought about that. But then, when I left, I was like, wait a minute, insurance, if they get into an accident outside of the community, right? They're on our time, right? So the insurance is still gonna affect us, right? And so it made me rethink that maybe this isn't the wisest decision that we made. And again, I'll just say, if we have to rent a truck every time they need to take care of business outside of the community and pick up, they go to the storage facility every time that there's a big event. So they're going outside of the community a lot.
I'm a real student of parliamentary procedure. Okay? If this is to be reconsidered, then we have to have a motion to reconsider.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And that motion to reconsider has to pass before we can reconsidered it.
Yes, you're right, John, yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion to reconsider, pickup truck request?
I make a motion that we revisit
I'll second.
pickup truck.
Do we have any discussion on this before we vote?
Yeah, yes, I do. Beth Ann, to clarify your question, when you say they go outside the community to go to Home Depot, et cetera, are you talking about the use of their own vehicle?
Yes, they,
Okay.
right now, they use their own vehicle.
Okay, understood. However, don't forget, you're passing that exposure of them driving their vehicle on their own policy versus the association's policy. Therefore, if they're in an accident driving an association vehicle, only if they're driving an association vehicle, we are responsible. If they're driving their own vehicle, we would not have any liability, even though they are employed by the
I
association.
get it, but we're then still putting them in that position where that could happen. And, correct me if I'm wrong, if in terms of workers' comp, right, an insurance company is going to try to get us to pick up the workers' comp stuff.
If they're driving an association vehicle.
Well, but even if because they're on our business time,
They're
they
not,
could certainly, if Brian is going out to a storage facility to pick up what we need for the Halloween or the Winterfest, and there is an accident, you mean to tell me that an insurance company is not going to attempt to go through our insurance to get to workers' comp? Just like when we were looking at the insurance stuff the last time, it was my understanding, okay, that if somebody is not an employee of Associa, comes into our community and does work, we then will be, even though that company has their own workers' comp, they will try to go after for our workers' comp. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah. I don't know, my opinion, go ahead.
No, go ahead, continue talking, I'm not gonna cut you off.
I just think it's bad practice for us to expect folks that are doing our business to use their own personal vehicles.
Do we have any discussion on the motion to reconsider before we vote on it? All right, all those in favor of reconsidering the motion to, look at acquiring a used pickup truck, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Isn't that nay?
Nay.
I'm not sure you have to discuss a motion.
All right. The motion to reconsider passes 6-1. So, we now are considering the motion to, acquire the pickup truck?
I'd like to table the motion, reconsider. And I'll give you my reason. Not to reconsider, table the motion to buy the truck. Would you like to know why?
Yes,
Yes,
wait,
of course we
wait.
Okay, the reason I want to table it is because I'd like to do two things. I want to hear other associations that have a truck and what their experience is. And I want to know what the insurance cost is on that truck to adequately protect us.
You have a quote in here, which is $1,800, but I will tell you that coverage is not adequate enough.
That's right, I want to see
It's
that
only
adequate
one.
coverage.
It's not.
So Jen, are you making a motion to table?
I am.
Okay, we have a second to Jen's motion. So we do not have a second to Jen's motion, so we will consider the motion to authorize Associate to spend reserve money to acquire a pickup truck. Do we have discussion on that motion?
I don't think we're ready until we know the cost of the insurance and see what other people have done. But, yeah, I'd like to hear from Brian how we limit the use of it.
We would limit the number of keys that we have, the plan would, so the authorized drivers of the vehicle were myself, John Novak, and Chris Harris. We would have each of our keys on our key rings, plus one spare key kept in the office under lock, and that's it. We don't loan the truck, we don't borrow the truck, we don't do anything. That is it.
Chuck, what are your thoughts?
I'm not driving this truck. Why me driving? No, I have to reflect back on, and I may have said this last month, and I apologize, but Brian used his vehicle to return rental signs that were used when we closed down the gates for Riviera. And unfortunately, the hitch failed and his vehicle sustained damage to roughly $2,000. That was brought to the board's attention, and the board kindly reimbursed Brian for that. And yes, they get mileage. They haven't been charging for mileage, but yes, we can put them on a mileage plan. But it just didn't realize how often they have to run back and forth to storage, or how they go to Lowe's and Home Depot. It is, a lot. If it was once in a while, I may have a different opinion. Like if it was just to go get Christmas decorations once a year, but the amount of time that they use it for, and the amount of time that I'm losing out of my compliance officer during rainy season, and now that our applications are calming down a little bit, so I want to get him out and doing his tours. So that kind of takes it away. He can use his car, but there's other reasons why he may not want to use his personal vehicle. For not everybody has a brand new car. So, but I think I talked to Todd's concern about control, span control. They each have a key. They'll each be responsible for that key. There will be one key. It'll be locked up. We'll be happy to ask risk management to come and observe where we're going to lock up the spare key. Brian's been known to, forget his keys once in a while, so we have to have a spare key. But I think John, we are the largest Associa Gulf Coast community. So it's not easy for me to go and talk to one of my peers and say, hey, how are you guys doing with pickup trucks? I've asked, I've kind of reached out, but it's difficult for me to find that. I'd have to speak to some of our competitors, to find how are they, I know there's one off of Palm Beach Boulevard, the Veranda, they have pickup trucks, but they're not an associate firm. I don't know who the CAM is. I know this because I have a friend that lives there. That's how I know. But it is not a unique request. But I also think I think we have responsible. I have to say my staff is very responsible. I don't think that there would be any abuse of the privilege.
I'd like to support this if I know we're protected. That's all. I think I'd like to do it.
Well, I think it's not unreasonable to make sure that we have adequate auto liability insurance, vehicle liability insurance. So,
what you have in your packets, we were at the finance committee meeting the night before. We were kind of put under, let's go see if we can get insurance off of their driver's licenses.
Right.
And, the short window of opportunity to turn that around from the finance meeting to today, or actually to yesterday, to get the packets out was, if we have more time to kind of figure it out, speak to insurance, have a VIN number, definitely the deal is zero in on a better number, but, kind of threw this out there based on what Brian was able to find out.
How much does it cost for us to rent a truck when Brian, when Brian has to go out and use if he were to rent a truck, how much would it cost us?
There was a breakdown in the package.
So I broke it down for, we had some deliveries of equipment, we've had, spitballing mileage that, we drive, rentals, and rough estimate would probably be $1,400 to $1,500 a year. In terms of my mileage, John's mileage, I didn't count Chris at all, renting, U-Haul for, going back and forth to storage, and any rental equipment that we get, i.e. the signage, whatnot, that's a delivery fee that we could actually pick up in the pickup truck. So that was that included in that number, so approximately $1,400 to $1,500.
And if, God forbid.
Bill, I have a couple comments, if I may.
Okay, Andrew, can you just hold on a second? Beth Ann's got one thing to say, and then we'll yield the floor to you.
How often do
Okay.
we have to use a sizable truck after eating? Because that could change this figure, correct?
Yeah. We didn't use, a rental vehicle a whole lot. What would have been probably much handier to have would be a pickup truck for use around the community.
Right,
That's,
and again, if we had to do that, we would have to, right, if that was the need, then we would have to rent a truck. I mean, I think you've been very gracious to use your own truck.
Okay, can we, like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay, Andrew, your turn to speak, please.
Yes, so two comments I would like to make if we're going down this path is I would definitely add a log in and log out type document for use of the vehicle, particularly when it is outside the community. And then second thing is I would like to comment, if we're going to spend the type of money that was presented to us in the form of the vehicles that can only be used within the community versus the pickup truck, I think the pickup truck is going to give us more versatility even to use within the community versus some of the gator type vehicles that we're discussing this evening.
Okay. Any other comments? I would like to amend the motion with two items. I'm making a motion to amend the motion to consider this reserve request to add, number one, that a written policy statement on how this vehicle will be used, how the access will be controlled, and the implementation of the log-in, log-out form to be provided, that associate will provide to us by the August board meeting. The second item, I would like to add to this motion that the risk management committee provide advice as to the proper level of insurability required for this vehicle.
I'll second that amendment.
Any discussion on that amendment?
Where's a vehicle going to be stored when it's not used?
Well,
In the parking lot.
That's what I'm talking about.
okay, so right now we're just considering my amendment, then we can go back to the main motion. Okay, so any discussion on the amendments? Okay. All those in favor of the proposed amendments, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
All right, we're now, so those amendments have been added to the original motion. Lynn, you had a question on the original
I
motion?
just wondered, it will be parked here in the park on
property.
grounds.
With a gator truck.
Yeah, part of the policy is that it will not be used for, no personal use, not to be taken home at night, or for even lunchtime or anything like that. Okay, all right. Expect it to be part of the policy. Okay. Are we ready to vote on the motion with the amendment?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion to authorize Associa to acquire a used pickup truck and spend no more than $32,000 on that acquisition with the amendment to that motion being that they have to provide a written policy for use of that vehicle by the August board meeting, and that the Risk Management Committee will be asked to provide guidance on the appropriate level of insurability required for that vehicle. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
How about nay?
Nay. Okay. The motion passes. Okay. The last item we have under new business is an ARP appeal. As we did last week, we're going to give the owners the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes, and then we will give a representative of the ARP committee 5 minutes to speak, and then we will have question and answer from the board.
Bill, can I ask one question if I am not here, not in person, is what color roof is the homeowner presenting to us tonight?
Go on.
A charcoal or anchor gray roof or a bronze metal metallic?
Charcoal gray.
It's charcoal gray.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, very good. So, ARP appeal, please come up. You have 5 minutes to,
Sign your copy. Sorry.
no, I want to get this done first.
Hello, thank you for your time. Brian Tansey from Wynwood Court. So we were talking about that here for roof appeal. The good news is it's charcoal gray, and you guys went through that last month. Christine did a great job. So I'm going to hit some of my high points. So after Christine's presentation, we had had some correspondence with the park board about approving the charcoal gray since it had already been done. They told us that they weren't under the belief that they had the authority to grant our request, and that the Petersons' request was a variance. I went back and listened. I believe it was an approval by the board. Just to hit some highlights from last month, nowhere does it have a list of any approved colors for metals. It's not on the wood Sandoval side of the art review. It's not on the covenants. It's not on the declarations.
Can you slow down?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Please. Yeah.
I was just to repeat it. Nowhere, whether it's in the ARC approval underneath the ARC review on the Blue Sandoval site, or on the declarations or covenants, does it have any list of approved metal colors. And actually, it just says that the list of prohibited colors, and red is one of those colors, and 9 streets are allowed to have red roofs, or currently have red roofs. With the Petersons' approval last month, there's now, that I know of, at least 4 approved charcoal gray roofs in the community across all 3 phases. And 3 of those have been approved by the ARC. So the Fairmont House is a charcoal gray, and that was done by Gulf Coast Manufacturing. That's got an ISR of 0.31, and the one that we're looking at is going to be Premier Metal charcoal gray, and that's got an ISR of 0.29. They're almost identical. The one that I'm looking at is 140 mile an hour wind rating. They're almost identical, and I have samples if you want to see.
Yes.
Wish to see those.
Please.
And I'll bring those after you guys answer your questions. One of the approvals that I know was an ARC approval, I happen to know the gentleman on Sutherland, and he sent me his approval letter, so I actually have that also. Both phases 1 or 2 that have been approved, all of the they're all tans and grays, so across Sutherland and Fairmont, and I'm on Linwood. And my initial ARC denial has been May 7th, so I'm just trying to.
Can you see it?
You want to see which one you want to see?
Well, can we,
Whatever you want to put up.
Oh,
Is it a picture or an actual?
well, I have the metal sample. There's pictures of the colors, and then I actually have the metal sample also.
Cool.
John, can we do this part of Q&A so they can have their full 5 minutes to present?
Sorry.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I don't believe so. I just have if you want to see it, I have the approval letter from one of the houses on Sutherland, and the other one had an email approval that I also have.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, Andrew, am I correct that you are representing the ARC to give the ARC perspective on this appeal?
That is correct, Bill. In this situation, the Park Committee has approved on Linwood Street in question, and the neighborhood in question. We have approved 5 slate gray metal roofs and 1 dove gray. those 6 roofs are, if we were to consider them darker in nature than the original tiles that were installed in there. And again, these 6 colors would be all standing seam metal roofs. So when we look at the material and the color of the variation, we are going a little bit allowing some flexibility that homeowners to put screws in that they put that as their preference, and remaining consistency with the grooves that are placed on wood. Any charcoal gray metal roof has been on Winwood been not approved to move forward with. So again, from that perspective, and maintain the consistency that the board has asked us to do in the resolution of December 15th, 2022. And in this situation, charcoal gray has not been approved on Winwood in a consistent manner, but we have offered the homeowners some flexibility in their colors, their color grading and tints to that degree.
Do you have anything else to add to that, Andrew?
No, again, this just falls back on to consistency. I cannot speak to approvals or disapprovals on the other streets, again, because we are focused on neighborhood basis for from a perspective of our reviews of properties and their change requests.
Okay. All right. So, John, you had a question for the homeowner?
Yeah, I want to see it sound.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. And there's only one on Fairmont, and before that was ours approved, it was not on Fairmont.
Which one?
That's the one that's on Fairmont, right there.
No, I just want to know what you're showing.
Okay, that's the one, the charcoal gray.
But
That's the one on Fairmont, that's the one I'm looking at.
this one here,
Yeah, that's the one that I'm looking at. That's the one that's on Fairmont, and that's the sample.
this sample of yours.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question. I will say 2 things. I agree with you that it's not, right, as of right now, it's not, so I get what you're saying. But this comes up, I think, consistently. When people bring us samples, I'd love to see this, what it looks like outside.
Three houses in the neighborhood.
Right, because when the prior one was issued and we made the decision, again, it was, I just think a lot of colors come in here, and then what the roof looks actually outside is very different.
Hey, I agree with you too, but if it's, we're talking about one shade off here and there, if they're 4 houses apart, you wouldn't know if they were next to each other on most of the shade differentiations.
Can I see the sample?
Yes, sir. If they're 4 houses apart,
I just want to see the sample of what you're looking for. Okay.
There you go. But the colors are the exact same.
I understand. I just want to see what you're looking for your roof. Okay. All right. Do we have any more questions for the homeowner? Do we have any questions for Andrew representing the ARC?
I think, John, you have a valid point.
But going, first of all, the argument.
One final comment, Bill.
Yes, Andrew.
From the perspective of ARC, again, in most cases, once we have gotten any area of charcoal up, whether that tends to be the standing seam, and particularly in the stone-coated metals, when we get those charcoals up, they tend to be tend to trend closer to black, and it's not been a traditional color within the community, so that's why we have been moving forward, rejecting applications that have gone with charcoal, because it moves closer to the black scheme of color that we intend to here in the community in order to keep that consistency.
Okay. Jan, you were going to say something?
Yeah, but the thing that bothers me about the presentation is that you're asking this on the basis of precedent.
Well, absolutely, there's at least 4 of
And
them.
we're saying precedent does not apply here. Because we made an exception one time, does not mean we have to make the same exception for you. We want to make this decision based on what we think should be best for your street and its application. So
Here's here's my issue is that if the ARC is already approved 3 separate ones, I have a letter in here that the ARC's already
not on
approved.
your street.
Not on my street, but there's one on Fairmont. There was none on Fairmont before that.
If I can add one thing that Christine was saying at the last meeting is, and one of the reasons why you approved it is because it was in the gray scheme and the color palettes. And we are allowed to have that gray scheme and color palette, so why is she or Sutherland or Fairmont allowed to have it? Because they're allowed to have that gray scheme, but Linwood can't. That's the point, another point we're trying to make.
Are you suggesting we made an error in approving Christine?
But if you.
I would never say that.
I think she deserved it, but I think that other homeowners do as
All
well.
right, well, maybe we did.
Yes, Pat.
I have a comment. You know, the slippery slope here is the presentation by manufacturers of the word charcoal. When you think of charcoal, you think of black. There is no way that sample is even close to being black. It is a shade of gray. And that's the same situation we had last month. And so, again, the slippery slope is the word charcoal. And when you say charcoal, you think of this type of color. There is no way that's even close to it. That is a shade of gray. Are you looking for motion?
Please
First I want to make sure that we've asked the owner all questions or discussion we want to have on this. And if we have any more questions for the ARC representative on this. Okay. So the motion is to make an exception to this, for this ARC appeal. All those in favor of...
You know what, I do have a comment, sorry.
Excuse me a second, I need a second to the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Beth Ann, what would you like to say?
I think that the major problem with this issue, that until it's changed, and that we're gonna keep happening, and I'm curious, Andrew, what you have to say about this, is that it is not, that in our government documents, it only speaks about tile roofs. It doesn't talk about metal. So I always feel like we're at a loss when it comes to this. And that really concerns me because basically, I mean, we still have to follow a color scheme when it comes to tiles, right? So, yeah, my question is, well, I just want to hear what Andrew has to say about it.
Andrew, did you hear the question from Beth Ann?
I did. Beth Ann was going to share it during the ARC committee update, but I'll go ahead and do it at this point since the question's being asked at this time. We have developed a draft of a color palette that will contain information and color choices for both tile, stained steel, and stone-coated steel options for all 3 phases. And then we'll also, as it has in the past, focus specifically on each of our individual neighborhoods by street. I intend to have that document in front of the board for approval at the next board meeting.
Right, and that's basically what you had said in terms of the new legislation.
Yeah. All right. Any more discussion on the motion?
I just would like to say, I commend these folks for following the process. They've gone through the proper process, and gray, which that is part of, if I'm not mistaken, part of the color scheme that's approved in that neighborhood. That's my one
I
comment.
haven't gone, honestly, I haven't gone past Christine's house. But again, I do think that it's not there yet, so, okay, then we can't really see it. But you're saying that it is, there's, okay. I haven't had, the opportunity.
There's one on Fairmont too on Sutherland.
Okay, I haven't had the opportunity to look at it. And I think that's why I said what I said at the last meeting. In fairness to folks who come up, that I feel we're at a loss in terms of actually seeing during the day what these roofs look like. And if I had that concern, what I should have done is gone and looked, and I did not. But that's always my concern here, as well as it relates to other colors throughout the community when people have asked for something that differs. Because I've seen some roofs that maybe it was approved here, but look completely different in the day as to what was asked and approved for.
All right, so we've had a second to the motion. I'm going to ask every board member that wants to vote to approve this exception, raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
I see 3 hands and 3 ayes. All those opposed, say nay and raise your hand. Nay. We have a 3-3.
What about Andrew?
Andrew,
Of course you can vote.
well, as representative of the ARC, he is,
He has to vote.
he can as a representative of the ARC. He said that as part of his thing. So since the vote is tied, the motion fails. The appeal is denied.
What, can I say, can I add something? So there's one particular tile color that was approved before Ian, and it's much darker, almost in a black tone to the gray. And another thing is like, I guess, looking at the fact that if you approve one and say, okay, we listened to the meeting last month multiple times. It just said gray scheme. And this is a gray scheme. We're not asking for black. We're asking for the fairness of what other homeowners have been received, and it just doesn't seem right.
I mean, you guys are opening yourself up for selective approval.
And that's basically what it's turned into, which is unfortunate, and it's unfair for many homeowners.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the last item under new business. We are going to look at the storm preparedness operations guide.
Thank you. Board members, in your packet, you have something that looks like this, which is referred to as the Storm Prep Operation Guide. This is the culmination of weeks of workshops, meetings, walk-arounds, and the staff itself, 5 of us. We're here for Ian, so we have some real knowledge there. Also like to thank the participation by Bill and Beth Ann for sitting through some of our tireless meetings, going through the details that we need to secure the amenities. So this operation plan, and I've asked Brian and Jessica here to speak a little bit about this, but what this is a playbook for the staff to be able to secure all the amenities, similar to what we did when Ian hit. Everything from getting the pool ready, taking all the furniture in, removing the shade cover from the playground, securing the building. This is a task-by-task list that has primary responsibilities, secondary responsibilities, notes for every area, and it's never done, because every time we look at this, we find a couple more things we want to add. But we feel confident, based on our real-time experience and what we put into this document, that we are prepared to take on any kind of storm. We also, if you were here last meeting, maybe last meeting, where the board was allowed us to add some tools to our arsenal here by a generator and Skylink, which is some communication equipment for us. So I would like to ask Brian to talk a little bit. Last time on medication.
Medication alert.
Keep going.
Medication alert, sorry.
Brian's some of the areas in the document.
So what we did was we kind of broke everything down by area. You know, we separated each of the buildings into a packet, the gate areas, the sport courts, lagoon, the pool, specific to gym flex room, the dog parks and Calypso, and we had broken it down obviously by type of storm. So what we intended to do was to try to make this as easy to follow as possible, and to ramp ourselves up by category of storm. We've gone through this a bunch of times, and I feel pretty confident that we have a really good sense of what we would need to do based on storm projections and our tasks. Was there anybody, did you get a chance to review, and does anybody have any questions?
I do want to say that there's a couple of things that were omitted from this. We will include the staff's personal telephone numbers, their personal addresses, the board members' cell phones and addresses, our vendor hot list, and complete list of our vendors. That will be also in this plan. We didn't feel that we wanted to publish this with board members' cell phones and staff cell phones in here. But it will. I will not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
You're going to look at the table of contents and say, "Oh, I think there's something missing." It's not missing. We left it out, but it will be in the final document. And, I just want to let you know that it was there.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Brian or Chuck on this plan?
We also would like Jessica to talk. There is a communication plan
Okay.
that's also embedded in this.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? So for the storm preparation communication plan, I'll be the main point of contact for the flow of the information as far as communication. The communication plan is going to vary, of course, because it's contingent upon the severity, trajectory, speed, strength of the storm. There are three facets to the communication plan. There's the preemptive notification, cautionary notification, and recovery notification. In addition to that, we're going to implement daily progress reports to the community. So the preemptive communication is meant to inform the residents that we're closely monitoring the storm and give encouragement to the residents to remain vigilant. Depending on the storm, we anticipate this communication to be sent out 8 to 10 days ahead of the storm. The cautionary notices will be sent in intervals such as 7 to 5 days before the storm or 4 to 2 days before the storm for tropical storms, or for hurricane or tropical storms respectively. These communications are standard but will cover the following. A reminder to homeowners that they need to secure any loose items in their property, also to have, if they have grates in their backyards, to make sure that they're free of debris so that way they can drain properly. Address the level of measures taken by Envera, the gate company, and staff depending on the severity of the storm. Cancellations or rescheduling of any social activities. Amenities that it will be closed. Evacuation information, governor's orders, and of course encourage residents to continue to monitor the storm. In regards to recovery, this is going to occur as soon as we can after the storm. Some of the first implementations that we're going to have is assessing the damage first, and then implementing our recovery plan that includes securing gate access, reestablishing communications, and getting the security staff up to date. There may be some redirecting of traffic depending on gate access and other debris after maybe a major wind event. Completion of the manual verification of residents if the gates are down. We still want to ensure that the community stays safe. Status of reopening of the amenities, starting with things that are the simplest, such as the dog parks. And then daily progress reports will continue from there.
Any questions for Jessica? Okay. I'd like to commend Associate for all the work you're doing on that. Let's hope we don't have to see this plan in action this year.
I just want to add that the staff will be working with Jack and the Strategic Planning Committee to help them put together the resident owner version of this. This is for the staff, for the amenities, but we also plan to work with them.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Moving on to committee reports. The next committee report will be landscaping.
Okay, landscaping, we're continuing to work with Juniper to see to it that they try to keep on schedule. We do run into issues because of weather, and I think sometimes they don't have enough staff on site, so they fall behind, but we continue to work with them and try to get them caught up. They are working extra days to catch up. All of the restoration has been completed, and I think they only lost like 6 or 7 plants and they replaced them already. So it looks like they're doing a good job. And that's it for landscape.
Okay. Next committee report is communications. At the last communications committee meeting, a lot of the focus was on understanding the requirements in the HOA legislation and the impact of Sandoval. In addition to that, we discussed about trying to pull the information together for the next newsletter, and we got some very good numbers with reading of the last newsletter, and they're looking to get another one out in the September timeframe. And lastly, the Communications Committee will be sending out a request for a volunteer to assist Vic with running of Zoom and subsequent board meetings and town hall meetings. One of the things that we discovered was that having someone sitting next thank you. Having someone sitting next to Vic to sort of manage the Zoom portion while he's focusing on the audio-visual portion would make for a more efficient management of the meeting. So we'll be sending out a notice requesting volunteers for that, and we'll be using neighborhood reps to get that message out also. Next one is ARC.
Yes, Bill, just wanted to touch base with everybody, get an update. We had 27 roughly applications in the month of July. That is a much smaller number than we had experienced since the end, so it does look like they're beginning to more normalize in the amount of requests on a monthly basis. The first monthly meeting was July the 6th, and we had 20 applications, and then we had a meeting on July the 20th with 7 applications. In that case, at most, if there was a denial, it was based on administrative denials of things where the license of the contractor wasn't present, some of the insurance information, whether it be the general liability or the workers' comp piece of information was missing. In most of those cases, the owners were able to get that to us quickly, and the status of their application is changed and they're permitted to move forward. In addition, we have spent a good portion of this month, as I indicated in the hearing that was just had, to really begin to review the roof color options palette that was completed as part of the December 15, 2022 resolution. The ARC intends to have that draft in front of the board so that we can look to have an approval at the next board meeting in August at the end of the month. Finally, as Beth Ann indicated in some of the update with regards to the legislation, ARC will begin to really take a deep dive into our architectural standards that surround some of the hurricane-related dictations that were part of that legislation. I would like to comment further on what we've been doing. In the last 2 meetings after July the 1st, when we do deny an application, it's important that we reference specifically what the violation is with regard to our architectural standards or other documents. When they receive the denial, they're also receiving the primary document for which the denial is coming from, so they can review that. Again, as I said, in most cases, it has to do with administrative issues, and in most cases, other applications are going through pretty smoothly. in regards to the rules committees, I think that's next in the list.
Well,
Rules committee.
yes, let's go to Rules Committee.
Okay, rules, we're doing a meeting actually right after the July 9th board meeting that Rob Bates was present. Obviously, that meeting ran a couple or several hours, so we did not hold a meeting directly after that. We are going to be holding a meeting this upcoming week to begin to really dive into the assignments with regards to the Rules Committee and the changes that came into place on July the 1st. We really want to be able to start diving into that to be able to provide the board and any other impacted committees recommended changes to language, and we can go ahead and get those things approved as necessary.
Okay, thank you. The next committee report is social.
I'm going to do the social presentation.
You're gonna do it?
I'll do it.
Good.
Okay.
Oh, wait, can I say something first?
Of course.
Our social committee is one of the most active committees in Sandoval. They work hard, they meet twice a month, they've got calendars filled, we're now to December. The group is working very well and oftentimes led by our quite capable lifestyle director who's gonna talk to you. Okay.
Thank you, John. So I first want to just kind of recap what we've done this last month. It is summertime, so it's a little light. We had some kids indoor games. They played ping pong, sang karaoke, and played with crafts like air dry clay. They had a ball. It was awesome. Lee Health Blood Drive was very successful. We were able to fill 14 of 22 units. That's excellent for a summertime drive. We also had 2 outings. One was the Mary Poppins show at the Broadway Palm Theater. There were actually a few children that purchased tickets, so I was happy to see that. And we also did a Top Golf, which was wonderful. I was able to join, and it was a lot of fun. So hopefully, when we do it again, we can get a bigger group going. So thank you to all that came out for those great events. Now, events to look forward to. Tomorrow we have author John Brooks and his mother Mary Brooks. He wrote a book called Grandma Brooks Meets Harry and Sally. It's a beautiful story about sharing and caring. That'll be held in the Pelican Library at 1 p.m. Karaoke night is this Saturday. It starts at 6 and it's BYOB. Singers and non-singers, welcome. One thing I want to stress is we do have a fishing event. I know Stu had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. We're trying to get at least 6 participants. We really only have 1 committed at this time. We do have a problem with the invasive species, and there's money on the line. So, I mean, it's really great. The top prize is $100, second is $75, and it goes over down to the 4th place. So, be sure to reach out to me if you'd like. That would be fantastic. So it's August 4th. We have 2 lectures coming up. I found through my interactions with the community that there are several individuals that are either suffering from or working with someone that is suffering from Alzheimer's. So we have 2 lectures coming up in August. The first one's going to be August 5th. It offers a comparison of Alzheimer's and frontotemporal dementia. The August 19th one, they're both going to be at 11 a.m., by the way. The August 19th one will be geared towards the stages of Alzheimer's, and which is great for the caregivers of the Alzheimer's patients. We have a trivia night lined up for August 23rd, so be sure to get your team names in. That does fill up really quickly, so please let me know. We had a back-to-school dance originally scheduled. I have changed that now from feedback that I received from the community. Oasis Middle School is having their open house that night. So we reworked that, and it won't be a back-to-school dance, but it'll still be a dance for the 11 to 15-year-old crowd in Sandoval, and it's going to be September 6th. And I want to make an announcement. I've had a lot of people ask me when the next garage sale is. We have it slated for November 2nd. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for social? Okay.
I just have a couple of comments. I mean, I know Jessica tries really hard to try to elicit people to come out to the community. I always go back to that this is a community that is not 55 and older, and that in order to, it feels like there's a lot of division amongst the young folks and the older folks. I really feel like we need to be more reflective of events for children's activities, not just children, but also, mothers, who are couples who are in their 30s. If we really want to pull that crowd out. And I think part of the problem is we need people on that social committee that reflect that population, because me as a 60-year-old may not know what a family, what's their availability, what they're interested in. I look at what we did for Cinco de Mayo. Not Cinco de Mayo, 4th of July. One of the wonderful things that came out of that is you saw kids interacting with adults. You got to meet people that you don't meet in the community. It is a wonderful thing that we do events like that. I just think there are no demographics of this community. We don't know who lives in our community. A while ago, I asked if we could do a survey of who's, not getting people's personal information, but just who is in your home, what your home composition of your home makeup, so that we could really see what's the audience that we're trying to please, how much we need to put into that. So I think that the amenities are a huge thing that attract people to our community. People are looking for recreational activities. I just think we need to do more of that. Now, also, I just want to comment on Stu's point. I don't know whose responsibility the fishing derby is, but in terms of but in terms of participation, no matter which committee is assigned to it, it is, and there's money on the line. If we only have one person who's going to be participating, that event, does it make sense? What is it? $100? What is it, Jessica?
It's $100 for top prize, $75, $50, and then $25.
So that means, go ahead.
And insurance.
And then there's also about $350 of insurance.
Okay, so we're spending a lot of money, and that means, the same person has been doing it for a while now, and wins because there's nobody else doing it, and the person is trying to be helpful, so it's not that their motive is to get the money, but they're trying to, be helpful towards dealing with the problem. But if there's only one person, then the Lakes Committee should, if not social, the Lakes Committee should assess whether this should continue. I don't know how the Lakes Committee feels about that.
Okay. All right, let's move on. The next one is amenities, Jim. The amenities in Jim.
Well, I thought you were calling me Jim, okay. That's my second name. No, it isn't. Dog park's my middle name. Amenities is one of the reasons people move here. We have private amenities, and the amenities group is keeping up with the fine. There's not a whole lot of new things to say. One of our residents had a fairly expensive stair climb machine, which they offered to us for a very small amount, only a fraction of it. So we would be adding that to the workout room. But other than that, amenities are sailing fine. The next thing, however, is dog parks, and you'll hear from our chairman of our dog park committee in a minute. But the thing I want to mention is that dog parks is a very serious amenity of ours, and it's been neglected. So when you hear from them, let's pay attention to the things we've got to do. It's going to take us a while to get it right. We have the time to do it now, that during the rainy season, we should be able to repair some of it. But let's hear what Dave has to say. Dave, hold on.
Dave O'Donnell. We did not meet this past month since the last meeting, but we did accomplish some work. The committee produced and submitted a plan today, which is probably still in Chuck's inbox, and not expecting that he had read it yet. But the top priority in that ask is the immediate need, and I think it's a safety issue, is we need to get maintenance or quotes from Juniper to fill some holes in both the parks. That's a pretty serious issue. All of the rest of it is important as well, and it's prioritized by near-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. And so there are a number of things that are outlined in there that we need to accomplish together. And we just kind of probably need to allow Chuck and John, I copied you on the email as well.
Yes, you did.
I'll allow Chuck a chance to look at it and get back to me on action, how to execute on the action items.
When he's talking about holes, we're not talking about dog holes. We're talking about holes from trees being pulled down. And they're tripping hazards, so we really need to get on with it. And if we're gonna do it now, while the dog parks are in limited use, they have a time to restore before things pick up in the fall. So we need to get those.
It's when that grass grows so as fast as it does, that you can't hardly see them until
Well,
you
you
fall.
gotta be careful.
Yeah.
So we'll make a point that we'll revisit what's been happening on this at the next meeting.
Yeah, and also we need to do a good plan for next year's budget.
Right. So Chuck, we'd like to follow up on this at the next month's meeting, see what's been accomplished. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. The next committee report is from Safety and Security.
I don't see our chairman here, so I'll just give you some update that we just recently met a week ago and had an opportunity to work with strategic planning as to where we're going to go for some personal development for the storm team. We've seen a great plan here from Associated, and now we're talking about some individual within the homes, and we'll be working on that. Many of you can see that painting is being done, and for those of you who may not have really thought that it really looked bad, if you see where they did half of it and then they were coming back to do the other half, it's like all of a sudden the contrast was pretty much there for you, especially up front, where I think it was even faded worse. According to going forward with some issues that we're developing, and we'll work on this next one for the upcoming budget. And that's about it for now.
All right, thank you. I think we've heard enough about lakes this month, so we'll...
No, you haven't. First of all, I want to thank the Lakes Committee. This has been a long time, way before I even became associated with this hard-working group of people that all spent a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and I think the ball is rolling. And Jane, I'm just going to hand it to you. Go there.
So, obviously, our focus over the past couple of months has been more than that. This year has been getting this proposal ready for the shoreline repair, which was approved tonight. Thank you. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understands the approval tonight is to really negotiate the contract. The original contract did not have all the insurance and all the other requirements that we have. So we have to negotiate that out yet. The other thing is the committee is actively working on making plans for next year budget and for the reserve study budget, so we're ready for that. And yes, the fishing event is on. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on this. We would not, the Lakes Committee would not try to hold a fishing event if one person was signed up. What we wanted to make sure is that we gave everybody in the community a chance to sign up. Not everybody in this community is long-term planners. A lot of people sign up the last minute. We understand that the insurance has to be gotten, but I spoke with Jessica, and it just takes a day. So there's no need to cancel the event 2 weeks or 10 days before. We only need 1 day to cancel. So Jessica agreed with me and John that we hold open registration for the fishing event through Wednesday of this week. If we don't get 6 or 7 people, we obviously will cancel. That's what we've done in the past. So, just wanted to clarify.
Great, thank you, Jane.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah, one more thing about tilapia. We've kind of proven that we're not gonna catch the output tilapia at any volume, so are there any mass techniques that Solitude or others can help us with to get rid of them?
Well, so there's been, Ernesto did suggest a process that he went through. I don't know that it's practical for us, where he was feeding them and then caught them in mass. I don't know, if we want, the other suggestion that's been made is this idea where you shock the fish. Right, and they get stunned and they float to the top, and you pull out the invasive ones, and the good ones come back to life. I don't know if the community's interested in looking at that. So we have not, unless Stu, you've heard of another effective way. Yeah, I mean, the tilapia is much easier to catch, or easier to catch than the, no? So,
It's the bait. You have to use breaded balls of bait.
I think Stu's tried that and not much luck.
I've
All right,
caught at least 8 or 10.
All right, let's,
So,
well, this is a report, not a debate.
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
So we're open, come to the event and show us how to catch them.
All right,
Thanks, Jane.
thank you. Finance Committee?
Okay, Finance Committee, we met last Tuesday, and one of the things we talked about was we need to send something to each of the committees telling them that we are going to be starting the budget process soon, and they will need to put together their requirements or their requests for funding for any projects next year. I'll be sending an email, like I said, to the board liaisons to each of the committees, because I don't have the committee chairs' email addresses for all of them. There was another thing that was brought up last month, and I'm not 100% sure that it's been resolved. And there was a board member that was questioning the composition of the committee. So I would like to hear what the concerns are, so that we can try to resolve whatever issues there may be. So I'm assuming that nobody's gonna say anything, that we're good with the makeup of the finance committee. I mean, I'm still actively looking for more members. But until then, there's 4 committee members and myself as the chair, because you can't get a chair.
I've expressed my concerns about it multiple times. I don't think we need to rehash it, but I do think it's a conflict. But press forward.
All right, that's it.
Thank you, Dave. Covenants, Pat, or is it?
Oh, sorry. I'll be brief. The Covenants Committee met on July 18th. We heard one appeal, and we affirmed the fine. So that's basically what happened in Covenants. If you wish, I'll roll right into risk management.
Yes.
Risk management, the Chairman Dunker is contacting some local insurance professionals in regards to the insurance policy. And finally, in risk management at 5:21 this afternoon, you all received an email from Ian Keith, along with commentary from Jameson at Certificial in regards to some concerns regarding the new vendor policy and implementing that in Certificial. So that's in your inbox.
Okay, thank you. Strategic planning.
Jack is gonna present a PowerPoint that he's prepared. Agreed.
Beck, do we have the PowerPoint?
No, so Jack, we're not using Zoom. We had issues with that.
Okay, so we can't do the PowerPoint?
No, I thought you were gonna bring a computer.
Okay, well, I did.
Just leave.
I'll try to do this without PowerPoint and probably get through it a little quicker.
But I'm sorry, why can't you do the PowerPoint?
we had technical issues with connecting to Zoom, so we sent a note out to the community just prior to the meeting that we're not using Zoom tonight.
Right.
So, Jack had sent the charge to Vic to be presented via Zoom, which we're not able to do.
Okay, for YouTube,
You can't do it by
you
YouTube.
can't do it by YouTube, okay, all right.
Right.
That's okay, I can do this, and had some beautiful slides, but don't worry about it. The charge to our committee from President Bill was to come with more of an integrated approach to emergency planning for Sandoval. Everything that I think we were talking about doing with regard to that and many other things is as a result of Ian and some of the things that we learned through there. The overall big picture goal, as we understand it, I don't think anybody would disagree, is first protecting people. And then the second thing is to minimize damage to the property of our residents, of the association itself, and other parties that might be here. We want to look towards a single plan that will require, doing that will require cooperation and coordination among a lot of parties in here, people that will have a critical role in preparing for, recovering from emergencies and many times. And we will address in our piece of this some of the more likely hazards we might face. Flooding being another one that I think is probably potentially worse even in consequences than a hurricane, now that we all have new roofs and concrete houses. Again, the top priority, protecting people. We want to do before, as this thing is completed, we want to do as good a job as we can to provide the planning information to the community before emergencies occur. As part of that, we will not include anything that Chuck's folks have that is private information for themselves. In fact, we don't want to use Chuck's plan in great detail, but I'll explain a little bit of what we're talking about that. And then we want this plan to be a living one that we can update as we learn and go through it. We've had some great success in including some great people in developing the plan. The process is we're kind of on a rush schedule to get this done. First of all, Board of Directors, we appreciate Beth Ann Halsey's leadership, guidance for us as our board liaison. Chuck Keel and his team at Associa did tremendous and learned a lot from them, and the plan that he shared with you tonight is outstanding. And I want to talk about how that fits in with the big picture. Safety and Security Committee, Jay Salvo, Lynn Smith have been very active. I want a special thanks to Carmine Vetrano. He's a resident of Sandoval and a member of the Lee County Lee Aries Emergency Operations Program and a master of the ham radio system. He has a tremendous resource that we can draw upon. Our Strategic Planning Committee, myself, Jerry Kern, our Vice President, Beth Ann, our board liaison, and other people we'll draw in as we can, and at some point we're going to need to have risk management take a look at what we propose to publish and distribute through the community, because we don't want to promise things or imply that we're going to be able to do things for people that are not doable, maybe, or coordination is essential. We need to minimize confusion and wasted efforts among the people involved, and I think we've got a great team working on it now. I think we're well on our way there. We want one overall plan with clearly defined procedures, responsibilities, and resources, and then we need to communicate all of this effectively. I think there are three key components to the plan. First is the introduction and communications of it to the community, including communications from the board explaining why it was done, that sort of thing. That's pretty straightforward, but it's very, very important. I think that we make as many people as possible aware that this thing exists. The second piece of it, and the board has already seen it, is the site manager's plan of action. It exists in detail. There are significant lessons in it learned from Ian. It addresses pre-event planning, actions during the event, and recovery. It focuses, and this is the important thing for the residents to understand, it focuses on HOA property. The Pelican building, the Pineapple building, our gates, the pool, other commonly owned property, not individual sites, home sites. The recovery piece of this is going to depend for his team is going to depend tremendously upon the ability for associate employees to get here and begin taking on their roles. After a major event, people may not be able to get here, or they may be with their families, have emergencies, that sort of thing. So there's absolutely no guarantee that everything that's in that plan or any of the other parts of our plan is going to happen immediately. He's going to provide basic communications, as Jessica explained, to residents and owners before, during, and after the event. And we need to talk to her about how we can coordinate some of the things we want to do with that activity. And the most important thing to recognize is the associate team does not have the resources to provide services to individual residents during that emergency. That just has to be understood well. The third piece of it is what we're working on right now. And Chuck, if I misrepresented anything, or please correct me.
You're doing good.
All right. That's good. The resident assistance plan is the third piece of this. And this is what we call helping residents before, during, and after a major event. We are first going to have a model fill-in-the-blanks plan for individuals to complete themselves, and it will include a tremendous amount of information that's in the Sandoval specific. For example, our flood zone status, the GPS coordinates for the community, that sort of thing. We're going to include a section on leave or stay, a pros and cons of both. And I think that's very, very important. We know after Ian, a lot of people stayed and went through it, and I think some of those experiences that we saw directly here can be shared in this document. The lessons learned from Hurricane Ian, personal experience. I think the day we came back 9 days after the event, and we came in and we saw Sandoval, I think we can't live here. And we had no water, we had no power, that sort of thing. So folks need to understand, we have a lot of new residents here that have not been through one of these things. So it's important that we understand that. We need communications to the residents and property owners that aren't here, updating the status of the community and recovery efforts. And I think with that piece, we need to work very closely with Jessica. And then lastly, I want to mention the ham radio team. Carmen Vetrano has an incredible resource. We got a chance, some of us, to visit with him the other day and see his radio room there, and it's quite a show. But he has the ability to establish communications via the ham system to the local Lee County Emergency Operations Center. He can summon help. He can, if people are needing it, we'll look to doing health and welfare checks of individual homes. That's a little bit of a bridge too far for us right now, but we want to see if we can get to that position. So, Carmen, I sure thank you for being part of this and willing to help, and we'll flesh out exactly how that's going to work in the plan that you will see. As far as the plan for residents' assistance, as I said, the fill-in-the-blanks emergency plan, we're going to ask them to do things like get out personal information documents and things that you're going to need. We found out this ourselves during Ian. Your insurance, your deeds, photo IDs for yourself, financial information on your accounts and things. We were at a hotel on the east coast of Florida, and thank God we had Wi-Fi there, but that kind of information, we didn't have our account information, that sort of thing with us, we wouldn't have been doing anything.
sitting over there enjoying the sunny weather. Checklist that we will ask the folks to, or provide for the folks, preparing their properties for a major event. Power and water systems, what do you do if you decide to evacuate, or if you're going to stay? Do you turn the power off? Do you turn the water off? Evacuation checklist, hurricane supply list, considering elderly and children and pets' needs, medicines, and your prescriptions, food, water, and cash. And then we're also going to include a directory of key resources in government, shelters, within Sandoval, as we have those things to share with them. The question about, again, do we hunker down or do we evacuate? We'll talk about evacuation routes, what the governor's order means, what happens, what are your problems, liabilities if you decide to stay. And then what to expect after a hurricane or a flood event. Power, water, grocery stores, gas stations not going to be there. Emergency police, medical responders will try their darn best, but they're going to be under tremendous demand for their help. And then the issue we had after Ian is all of those friendly people that came in and were knocking on doors offering to fix our roofs and everything else. That was and other people in that were, frankly, I think, casing the community. We need to look at how we can work on that. We also see the opportunity with this plan, what I call bolt-on additions to that plan as we move forward. One is a resident service center, and this is Beth Ann's kind of idea. I like the idea, but the problem we have is we're going to need to recruit and train volunteers to work on that. We're going to need actual credible information to share out of that center. And then we're going to need some kind of a location where people can come, ask questions, what have you, especially if they don't have cell phones and that sort of thing. We don't have that now, and that's not an associate responsibility to provide it. All of these facilities here are committed to protecting the equipment and the furniture, that sort of thing of Sandoval. So that locating a place for that to occur is going to be a major obstacle, but we're going to take that on, see if we can't figure out something. And then lastly, expanding the ham radio capabilities that Carmine brings. There are 13 people.
There are 15 licensed in the community, but there are 6 members on the team. Vic is on the team. He's probably going to be one of the key right-hand people as well. But it's there now. It's
and
in
we need to look at the full potential that can provide for us, and we'll do that. The time frame for doing this, I'm going to just keep this short. We've already completed the benchmarking with other associations. We talked to Sable Springs. Sable Springs has 700 units. It's an over 55 community. They have 75 or 80 volunteers already up and trained and everything, ready to go in case of an emergency. We're not there yet. I hope and pray that if anything happens, that those volunteers are there and able to work. But I think we have to be very realistic that if people evacuate or there's problems here, people getting back, volunteers may not be as available as we'd like them. So we can't build too much of this plan on sand. We have to make sure that what we plan is realistic. It's critical for us, and we've already begun engaging with the Safety and Security Committee. Love to pass this whole thing off onto them. But
they're not real receptive at this point in time based on some information that they think is publicly out there. So
yeah,
we're going to need, there's a little acclimation period here.
We'll sweet talk them and we'll get there. But I love the cooperation we had the other day with our meeting with them, and I think that that's the first step. And then the other thing is coordinating with the associate. We don't want to do anything that impedes in any way Chuck's recovery efforts and that sort of thing. So, Chuck and these guys have been very, very gracious dealing with this. We will have the first draft of this third section of the plan for board review at the August meeting, and then we would hope, after you've had a chance to look it over, things that adopt it, approve it, whatever you do with a plan like that,
at the September meeting. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover tonight. We are moving along. I know that we're in hurricane season, and that's a little bit of an incentive, but
That's a really tight timeline, that we understand that. Oops. Is there any possibility or any discussion with any groups about a mock or a dry run or anything like that coming up in this plan?
I think that's part of it. Oh, thank you. Part of what I did go over in great detail is I think no plan is any good unless you actually test it. And then if you have a real event, you always find out that there are things that don't ever go as planned. Surprises occur, particularly in a hurricane situation. You know,
There'll be one coming in August, we can practice with
so
that.
that's kind of where we're at. And I don't know what budget this new microphone's going to come out of. Sorry.
I just want to make a couple of comments. The things that we really need to consider going forward.
That's fine.
If I screw up again, they're going to put me on the fishing committee.
One thing you were saying,
The things that we really need to consider in going forward, number one, we don't know how many people are going to stay in the community.
Yep.
Right? They're gonna, a lot of people are gonna leave, but there were a lot of people who stayed. If we decide and if the board thinks it's okay to do kind of what we're calling the command center, where would we do it so that we're not in Chuck's Way and all the properties that are here are being utilized by associates? So we would have to figure out where would we want to station the ham radio if we decide to go that way.
Right
we
now,
need
leave it
to-
at my house.
Well, right, what the
no
other,
debate, we're just reporting.
the other thing that of course we need to look at is insurance. How, you know, what are we taking on? Even though maybe perhaps looking at it as, this is not a management, this is not the HOA activity, this is a resident activity. But again, that needs to be flushed out. So a lot of this stuff is just being spoken about, being prepared about. Of course, you know, a draft is gonna come before the board gets an opportunity to share their concerns. So just to put that out there.
You're right. Guidance and lessons learned kinds of things we can share. Also, a way, a document template that they can use to fill out for their own personal information and things. But in no way, shape, or form guaranteeing that we're gonna be able to do anything for them or that sort of thing. And as far as a place, what we call a command center, I would say maybe a resident
Yeah,
information
it
center.
doesn't have to be called.
Whatever you wanna call it.
Right.
If it's not close to this facility here, I don't think it does as much good, because people are gonna be looking for, coming here, knocking on Chuck's door. Would you keep your door locked during the, no, I'm serious, during the recovery?
All right.
I'm usually in shorts doing something out here.
Okay, so there's nobody in the office, okay. Because I can just see it, that lobby filled with people wanting to know where their dogs are or something. Okay.
So-
Thank you, Jack.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush you
Okay.
there, but.
So the last item that we want to talk about is the Hayden Lane issue. We thought we were making progress. Marilyn is doing so much work on this. We thought we were making some progress, and then the city council, some folks kind of turned their head. The city manager is not for this at all, of us, the city taking over that street. So we're trying to come up with other ways of doing that, and this is, again, would have to be discussed with the board, is looking at doing a town hall, we keep using that word lately, of having all of the city council, those who are running for re-election or election, asking them to come, just as an informational for the residents, to ask whatever question that they want, but also talking about Hayden Lane and how they feel about it. Have they considered this? Have they considered that? So we think about that, but that's in the future. We're going to give this one more try in regards to approaching city council, and then we're going to have to look at, okay, this is not working, so what are other possibilities of doing it?
Nuclear option.
Huh?
Well,
Nuclear option.
we-
So Bill, I don't know if you want to say anything more
No,
than.
I think the important thing is that Maryland is doing yeoman's work, trying to reach out to every current council member and to all individuals that are currently running to advocate on behalf of Sandoval, and we'll have a better handle on what we need to do probably after the primaries happen, and we'll have a better focus on whether or not we can accomplish something with the current board, or we have to focus on the new board post-election. Okay. Any questions for Bethany? Okay. So,
Thank you, Jack.
the next, we have 2 board meetings coming up. We have a closed executive board meeting scheduled for July 29th at 4:30 p.m. And we have a regular monthly board meeting, August 29th at 6 p.m. to be held here in the Pelican Building. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Any resident want to talk?
No.